Hello friends, let us now learn some important points about the next group of antihypertensives, that is the diuretics which are acting on loop of Henle. So the diuretics which are acting on loop of Henle are, the first is loop diuretics. These loop diuretics are sodium potassium ATPase inhibitors. These are sodium potassium ATPase inhibitors. So these mainly act on ascending limb of loop of Henle. So first we will draw the cell of ascending limb of loop of Henle. This is the cell of ascending limb of loop of Henle, that is the lumen. This is the ECF. So in the apical surface you will see that there is a transporter, sodium potassium 2 chloride transporter, sodium potassium 2 chloride symporter, which will cause reabsorption of sodium, potassium and chloride into the ascending cell of ascending limb of loop of Henle. Now if the sodium gets reabsorbed, sodium potassium 2 chloride gets reabsorbed, this sodium directly gets reabsorbed through the basolateral membrane in the presence of the enzyme, in the presence of the transporter sodium potassium ATPase symporter, where this potassium, both the potassiums which have come, one potassium from the sodium potassium 2 chloride symporter and the potassium from this sodium potassium ATPase, both these potassiums will come together and they are excreted out along with this chloride through sodium chloride symporter, right? So this is the important normal mechanism that occurs. But whenever there is these loop diuretics, so one more important thing, some part of this potassium also enters the extracellular fluid through potassium transporter, right? Now this will help in maintenance of transmembrane gradient and proper reabsorption of sodium potassium 2 chlorides. Now there is also paracellular transport also occurs, but this is minimal amount of magnesium and calcium are excreted very minimally through paracellularly, right? Now that is in between the cells. Now when we use the loop diuretics, these loop diuretics will inhibit this sodium potassium 2 chloride, and as a result sodium potassium 2 chloride are excreted in the urine, right? And if you see, because sodium potassium and 2 chloride are excreted in the urine, there is loss of sodium potassium and 2 chloride, and this results in hypokalemia, hyponatremia and hypochloremia in the blood. And one more thing, there is increased sodium also reaches the distal tubule, right? Now one more important thing is all these pathways cannot occur because of blockage at one site here. And one more important thing is this paracellular transport which is occurring, even this will increase in the presence of loop diuretics. Then one more important thing, now this is the distal convoluted tubule cell. Here there is lots of sodium which has entered, and this sodium will enter the cell with potassium exchange, that is sodium potassium antiport. And because normally only small amount of sodium potassium exchange will occur, but in the distal convoluted tubule, in the presence of loop diuretics, because of the presence of large amount of sodium in the lumen of distal convoluted tubule, this exchange will occur to the maximum extent, and as a result most of the potassium is excreted out. So this will result in hypokalemia. So in distal convoluted tubule more sodium is present, so there is more activation of sodium potassium pump. So this causes reabsorption of sodium and excretion of potassium. So both these will result in hypokalemia. So what does both reabsorption of sodium and excretion of potassium occurs? This will cause hypokalemia. And now along with this sodium potassium pump, now we also have sodium hydrogen pump is also present in distal convoluted tubule. Now there is sodium hydrogen antiport is also activated. So similarly, there is excretion of H plus also, which results in acidosis in the urine and alkalosis in the blood. Okay, even sodium H plus antiport will also occur to the maximum extent. So now this inhibits these loop diuretics also inhibit carbonic anhydrases also, but they are weak inhibitors of carbonic anhydrases. So thus, because they inhibit carbonic anhydrases, they cause excretion of bicarbonate also, except that there is one drug which does not cause excretion of bicarbonate, which is itacrinic acid. Itacrinic acid is a loop diuretic which has no action on carbonic anhydrase enzyme, and it does not cause any excretion of bicarbonates, right? So this is the important point about the loop diuretics. Now these loop diuretics, thus they decrease the absorption of sodium and water. They decrease the absorption of sodium and water in proximal convoluted tubule, and thus by decreasing the absorption of sodium and water in proximal convoluted tubule, they will change the intrarenal hemodynamics. They will change the intrarenal hemodynamics, and thus they will cause the release of prostaglandins. They will change the intrarenal hemodynamics and thus causes the release of prostaglandins. The drug NSAIDs will inhibit the release of prostaglandins, and these NSAIDs will attenuate or decrease the diuretic effects, right? So these are some important points. Now let us learn about the drugs which are present in loop diuretics. Important drugs. So first important drug involved in important drugs of loop diuretics are, we have loop diuretics include furosemide, torsemide, bumetanide. Then there are drugs like itacrinic acid, axosemide, pyrantenide, then tripamide, and mercilil. So all these are the loop diuretics. Important points are very important. So we have furosemide. Furosemide actually has vasodilatory action. Furosemide has vasodilatory action, and it causes quick relief in left ventricular failure and pulmonary edema. This causes quick relief in left ventricular failure and pulmonary edema. Then if you see torsemide has longest half-life. Because it has torsemide has longest half-life. Bumetanide is the most potent loop diuretic, and this bumetanide has lesser side effects. It is the most potent loop diuretic and it has lesser side effects. Then we have itacrinic acid. Itacrinic acid is a highly ototoxic drug, and it has steep drug DRC, that is dose response curve. We have steeper dose response curve for itacrinic acid. Then mercilil increases the risk of kidney damage, so it is not used now. Then these loop diuretics have the maximum natriuretic effect among the diuretics, that is they excrete the sodium to the maximum extent. They have faster acting with shorter duration. They act at a shorter duration with faster acting, rapidly acting. Normally if you see, these loop diuretics maintain the difference in osmotic pressure between the cortex. Sorry, this is not loop diuretics. Normally our body will maintain the difference in osmotic pressure between the cortex and medulla, which is called as corticomedullary osmotic pressure. Right, normally our body maintains this corticomedullary osmotic pressure. Absorption, because of this corticomedullary osmotic pressure, there is absorption of water from the descending limb of loop of Henle, and there is reabsorption of salt occurs from ascending limb of loop of Henle. This occurs normally because of this corticomedullary osmotic pressure. But if you see, these loop diuretics will abolish or they will block this corticomedullary osmotic pressure difference. Because they will block this corticomedullary osmotic pressure difference, this will result in free water clearance. That is, there is no reabsorption of water in the descending limb, or there is no reabsorption of salt. So the whole water gets freely excreted. So amount of water excreted in urine in excess. So there is water is excreted along with the solutes through the solutes isoosmotically, which is called as free water clearance, which occur in the presence of loop diuretics due to the difference in corticomedullary osmotic pressure. Then this is about the loop diuretics. Then if you see the uses of loop diuretics are, we have the loop diuretics are mainly used in, there is one more thing, this magnesium and calcium occurring in paracellular excretion will occur mostly with the presence of loop diuretics usage. Normally there is minimal excretion, but with loop diuretics the excretion of magnesium and calcium becomes more. So if you see the uses of loop diuretics, they are used in renal, hepatic and cardiac diseases, mainly to remove the edema fluid. They are used in renal, hepatic and cardiac diseases to remove the edema fluid. They are used in IV, they are used for acute pulmonary edema through IV, and they are also used as for hypercalcemia. They are used for hypercalcemia. Then if you see the side effects include hypokalemia, hyponatremia, it causes metabolic alkalosis, and it also causes hypocalcemia and hypomagnesemia. Hypocalcemia and hypomagnesemia due to paracellular transport of magnesium and calcium through paracellularly in the presence of loop diuretics. Hyperglycemia occurs. So this hyperglycemia, because of this hyperglycemia, it is contraindicated in diabetes mellitus, and because of hypocalcemia, we do not use loop diuretics in hypocalcemia, and these loop diuretics are actually contraindicated in renal stones. They are contraindicated in renal stones because in renal stones there is loss of calcium in urine. Even here there is loss of calcium in urine, so there is increased risk of renal stones in furosemide intake, patient taking furosemide. Then the one more side effect is dyslipidemia. So this is also contraindicated in diabetes due to hyperglycemia and dyslipidemia. Then we have hyperuricemia. Because of hyperuricemia, these loop diuretics are contraindicated in gout. Then we have the drugs, loop diuretics like furosemide and bumetanide are chemically sulfonamides. Because they are chemically sulfonamides, they are actually avoided in patients who are allergic to sulfonamides. Right? So this is about the important points about loop diuretics. Thank you for watching.